Jaws is an undisputed masterpiece of suspense and horror. In his second theatrical film, Steven Spielberg crafted what is the most thrilling shark movie ever made, and by 100 nautical miles, and it established the modern blockbuster. Jaws also began a franchise that became increasingly lame with each new entry, and in its wake left a line of shameless rip-offs. Some of these rip-offs were cinematic chum, while others managed to find some level of entertainment, and even launched the careers of other successful filmmakers. To be clear, these are films that were inspired or have paid homage to Spielberg's classics. These are not films like this, such as Jordan Peele's Nope or Bong Joon-ho's The Host. Instead, the list will address the unabashed copycats and derivatives that try to leverage as much as they could off of Jaws in order to cash in. Many were produced quick and dirty in response to the film's box office success, while others come decades later. But all these films wouldn't exist without Jaws, and they know it. Welcome to Popcorn Programming, and with the recent 50th anniversary of Jaws, here are the 10 best Jaws rip-offs. Pop pop! In number 10, we have Orca from 1977, directed by Michael Anderson. The best thing about the immediate rip-offs made to explicitly cash in on the success of Jaws is how completely earnest they are. These movies have none of the self-awareness that would infect later animal attack mockbusters, including the Sharknado series. Orca was produced with producer Danny De Laurentiis, and it was his take on aquatic terror, swapping out the great white shark for the aptly named killer whale, and replacing Robert Shaw with Richard Harris. Orca does make some interesting changes, such as giving the titular creature vengeance as his motivations for targeting people. Given the well-documented acts of animal cruelty perpetuated against orcas and other marine life, it's fun and even cathartic to watch one of these whales take the fight back to humans. The movie does everything Jaws did, just a little trashier, but it does boast a solid production values. Harris giving a wild-eyed performance and a score created by legendary composer Ennio Morricone, it's enough to make any viewer question whether or not Willie really should be free. In number 9 we have Prophecy from 1979, directed by John Frankenheimer. Prophecy is an over-the-top environmental horror film that succeeds mostly on the back of its bonkers mutant bear monster. The twisted, mutated Ursine, the result of pollution from a paper mill, is legitimately scary looking and was easily the most terrifying of its kind until being eclipsed by the bear in Alex Garland's Annihilation. Much like the monster bear, the film's script is half-baked. Still, the overqualified cast, which includes Talia Shire and Armand Desant, and they do their best, as does legendary director John Frankenheimer, who is completely slumming it here. Of the many killer bear movies viewers have to choose from, they could certainly do worse than Prophecy. It's certainly the only one to feature hilarious death by exploding sleeping bag. In number 8 we have The Car from 1977, directed by Elliot Silverstein. The Car stands out from other Jaws rip-offs by simply making its monster automotive instead of bestial. In terms of vehicular mayhem of the movies, The Car falls somewhere between the cheap thrills of Maximum Overdrive and the sleek kills of Christine. Stephen King really had a thing for killer cars. The movie takes its four-wheeled menace seriously, with tongue far from cheek. That kind of earnestness can sometimes provide unintentional laughs, but the movie is otherwise competently made, and the cast is so committed that sort of humour eludes from it. That doesn't mean that Car isn't a good time. The vehicle itself is a modified Lincoln Continental Mark III and is memorable, and several of its kills are well paced and make good use of sound design. The film's musical themes also includes the famous Desiree melody, later made famous in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. The Car is a perfectly well-built slog designed for late-night viewing. In number 7 we have Shark Attack 3 Megalodon from 2002, directed by David Worth. Amidst the glut of Shark Attack movies that began to appear in the late 90s and clogged the programming schedule of late-night basic cable, Shark Attack 3 Megalodon is easily the most entertaining. Diving headfirst into the waters of so bad it's good territory, as the title suggests, this direct-to-video disaster piece features a giant prehistoric shark making lunch out of its cast and characters. The effects are the perfect mix of surprisingly good for the budget and hilariously bad, and the cast performs their roles without any smug irony. Shark Attack 3 also becomes a bit of an online sensation thanks to its memeable imagery and ridiculous dialogue. The final line of the movie, said as a joke by veteran TV actor John Barrowman, is the perfect summation of what makes the movie so damn fun. There are thrilling shark movies, bad shark movies, and funny shark movies, and then there's Shark Attack 3. In number 6 we have Lake Placid from 1999, directed by Steve Miner. As the Dawson's Creek creator Kevin Williamson found success in the horror genre writing the script for Scream, David E. Kelly, the man behind the legal comedy Ally McBeal, decided to try his hands at a Jaws riff. Lake Placid may have a script that is trying to be too clever, but it's saved by a talented cast and an incredible animatronic crocodile created by Stan Winston. Director Steve Miner, who had made contributions to several major horror movie franchises, puts in solid work as well as to try and deliver a movie that is more memorable than it has any right to be. The premise involves a giant saltwater crocodile that has somehow made its way to a lake in Maine. It gains the attention of all sorts of colourful characters, including Brendan Gleeson's curmudgeonly sheriff, Oliver Platt's eccentric croc expert, and best of all, a foul-mouthed local who's been secretly feeding the animal, played by Betty White. She gets everywhere. White's inimitable performance is worth the rental alone of the acerbic late 90s Monster Mash, which began a direct-to-video franchise that would eventually cross over with cult classic Anaconda. In number 5 we have Razorback from 1984, directed by Russell Mulcahy. Razorback trades the New England beaches for the Australian outback and the killer shark for a giant boar in what was genre filmmaker Russell Mulcahy's directorial debut. While the movie wasn't initially well received, Mulcahy rebounded with the original Highlander, and Razorback went on to gain a cult following. The film's success is mostly due to Mulcahy's solid direction and surprisingly beautifully shot compositions featured in the film thanks to Academy Award-winning cinematographer Dean Stemler. The plot is fairly standard and doesn't stray too far from the beaten path, but the movie is still wickedly entertaining and makes great use of its Australian outback setting. It would be a fine double bill alongside any of the country's grindhouse exploitation output. We have Deep Blue Sea from 1999, directed by Rennie Harlin. Deep Blue Sea is a B-movie mashup that combines Jaws with Spielberg's other seminal monster movie, Jurassic Park. Set in an underwater research facility where scientists are using sharks as test subjects in the search to cure Alzheimer's disease, as one does, naturally, disaster strikes and a small group of survivors must make their way to the surface while avoiding the super brain Makos. It's all a bunch of sci-fi horror hokum that is caught somewhere between sincerity and satire, which makes it all the more entertaining. Critics weren't impressed with the big-budget monster movie in 1999, but it has since sustained a cult following and is often considered as one of the best non-Jaws shark movies. Not that the bar is too high for that. The best parts of the movie are almost ancillary, including a jump scare involving Samuel L. Jackson and the rap theme song Deepest Blue Shark's In by cast member LL Cool J. Jaws is an animal horror at its most elevated, but Deep Blue Sea is just happy to splash around in the shallow end. In number 3 we have Arachnophobia from 1990, directed by Frank Marshall. Even Spielberg isn't above ripping off his film, as he served as an executive producer on Arachnophobia, a spider-filled riff on the Jaws formula. Longtime producer Frank Marshall takes a seat into that director's chair and acquits himself nicely in delivering both laughs and chills in this creepy, crawly creature classic film. Unlike many other knockoffs, the comedy in Arachnophobia is genuine, and the film knows when to lay off the laughs and lay on the scares. Jeff Daniels leads an ensemble cast as a Newtown doctor who finds himself up against an arachnid epidemic. Unfortunately for him, he suffers from the titular phobia. A fear of spiders is one of the most common phobias, but many horror films forget how to properly exploit it. Giant spiders make for campy fun thrills, but these 8-legged freaks are at their most terrifying when they remain at their natural size, and the strength in numbers helps too. Marshall and his team fill the frame with the crawling menaces and put them in common everyday places, like showers and popcorn buckets, so that the phobic viewers will never feel safe again. With the recent revival of killer spiders on film with the releases of Infested and Sting, now is the best time to revisit the scariest spider movie ever made. In number 2 we have Piranha from 1978, directed by Joe Dante. Piranha was the first Jaws ripoff to be commissioned by famed schlock producer Roger Corman and was directed by Joe Dante with a script written by indie filmmaker John Sayles. The ripoff was so successful that it spawned a sequel featuring flying fish and directed by James Cameron, as well as a 3D remake. Moreover, Spielberg himself approved of the movie, later recruiting Dante to direct Gremlins. Not bad for a movie about killer fish made for less than $1 million. After genetically engineered piranhas that were designed during the Vietnam War escape captivity, a private investigator and an alcoholic guide must try and stop them before they reach the nearby summer camp and resort. All the Jaws hallmarks are accounted for: a sleazy man in power who does doesn't heed the warnings, underwater shots from the predator's perspective, and practical effects that are less than convincing. Sayles' script is smarter than the subject matter, with an undercurrent of satire, and Dante directs with the same gonzo energy he would bring to his later, bigger budget work. And at number 1 we have Alligator from 1980, directed by Lewis Teague. Piranha wasn't the only Jaws-inspired horror film to be written by John Sayles. He also contributed to the forgotten 80s classic Alligator. There may be weirder and wilder Jaws rip-offs, but Alligator is the most fun. Inspired by the infamous urban legend, the film follows the late great Robert Forster as a Chicago cop tracking a bloodthirsty gator residing in the city's sewers after having been flushed as a baby. Sayles layers his script with satire, as the massive reptile literally eats its way up the socio-economic food chain. Lewis Teague is a steady hand behind the camera, building tension in ways similar to the animal attack horror classic Cujo. The alligator effects are charmingly dated and only add to the overall cheeky attitude that permeates the entire movie. Alligator is the kind of popcorn horror film that Friday nights were made for. And there you have it, there's our list. So what do you think? Let us know in the comment section down below. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and click the subscribe button if you're new around here. That's all for now, so to thank you for watching, and we'll see you later. Pop pop!